Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. National Guard troops descend on the Capitol as Mayor Browser slams Trump's deployment as an authoritarian push. Governor Newsom fires back. California will redraw electoral maps after Trump missed his deadline. New data reveals dramatic drops in the U.S. immigration population. What's actually happened? We're going to cover these very short stories for you guys and give you a breakdown of my hometown, Washington, D.C. So President Trump has deployed National Guard troops, and they start to appear in D.C. on grounds just yesterday. Following President Trump's federalization of the city's police force, he's also employed 800 troops that are expected, plus 500 federal law enforcement agents. And Mayor Browser of D.C., who initially cooperated, has rejected the move, calling it an authoritarian push. She wants federal patrols limit to federal property and is warning of erosion of home rule authority. Well, in this case, being the mayor, she doesn't have the same rights and or authority that a governor would have if DC was a state. Now, critics argue crime in DC was already at a 30-year low. This intervention raises serious questions about motive and overreach. And some people will say, well, it's been at a 30-year low, but the president wants it even lower. I pointed out statistics just yesterday referencing in regards to Memphis, Tennessee, who literally has the most crime in any U.S. city. So the question is, why hasn't he deployed troops there? Why has he invoked Section 704? I digress, as we're going to cover more of that. Now, it states here that the D.C. mayor says Trump takeover shows why U.S. Capitol should be the 51st state. I think this is very important here. Let me just cover this very quickly. It states here, President Trump just yesterday, 2 days ago, invoking Section 740 of the Home Rule Act to take control of the police department. The 1973 law grants Washington, D.C. residents limited authority to govern themselves. I recall a time when I believe President Clinton was in office, and the only thing he did for D.C. was create tags that stated taxation without representation, because D.C. residents get taxed 8-9%. I don't know what the rate is today, but no less, we don't have any representation in Congress. We don't have a governor. There's a certain levels of governors that D.C. just doesn't have. And D.C., by the way, was created by the state of Maryland and Virginia. We'll touch on that a little bit later as well as I read some more details here. Let me just go down here to the highlights. I believe I had a little more highlights. Maybe it was another clip here. But basically, Trump said is very aware of the number of D.C. residents who voted for him in the 2024 election and has in turn taken an aggressive stance. So is this payback? What are we talking about here, folks? Is this payback? He stated that the president has named other liberal-leaning cities like Chicago and Los Angeles as places where he might send federal troops next. Is this retaliation? Again, I'm just asking these questions because it just seems as though he's been very bitter of the states and or jurisdiction that did not vote for him. His recent attempt to crack down on violent crime came after the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE, employee was assaulted during an attempted carjacking on August 3rd. And then again, that can happen anywhere in these United States of America. I guess no crime can occur in D.C. because, again, that is where the president resides. Well, unfortunately, Mr. President, there's crime that happens in all 50 states and the U.S. territories of America. Some states has more violence than others, but there's always been form of theft, larceny, murder, rape, assault. All of these crimes occur in each and every state and each and every territory. There's no jurisdiction, there's no district, no state, no region where crime does not happen in these United States of America. Now, granted, we was like the UK and we took away the guns. Could that reduce the amount of crime where people just, will have to use knives or create pipe bombs like they do in the UK? I don't know. I'm just asking. But again, 30-year low of crime rates have dropped in DC, but yet again, President Trump has invoked Section 704 by federalizing DC police, as well as deploying 800 National Guard troops. And we're still trying to figure out why. Why, Mr. President? I digress. Now, Governor Gavin Newsom announced California will withdraw its electoral maps after Trump missed a deadline to halt GOP-led state redistricting. In trademark style, Governor Newsom marked Trump as a taco Trump in all caps social media post, threatening Democratic retaliation unless red states and stand down. This redistricting standoff sets the stage for a broader partisan battle ahead of the 2026 midterms. Control of the House may hinge on who wins this map war. So some of the plans that a lot of the red states, as well as blue states that have red enclaves, meaning Republican enclaves, planning to take over states like California to turn them either purple and or red, or keep them somewhat neutral. But again, when you look at the states from Washington, Oregon, and California, that whole western seaboard usually stays blue. Now, if they were doing the strategy that they are imposing in Texas, then they could potentially turn California, half blue, half red, so on and so forth when it comes to Oregon and Washington State. But because of this deadline, Gavin Newsom is now taking a play out of the Trump playbook, is going to redistrict. So we, the people, don't have any power. Let me just get right down to the nooks and crannies of things. We, the people, don't have any power once we select and elect certain politicians in office. Because Governor Gavin Newsom is just playing tit for tat. But then again, is this strategic political warfare? Because he say, well, if I don't do this, the next time this comes around, he's going to remap and redistrict California lines to, again, gain way to unseat Democratic seats that have always been Democratic for a very long time. So again, depending on who's watching this video, whether you're Republican or Democrat, or you're just like me, you want the truth. Who does this benefit more? Does it benefit the American citizen, or does it benefit politicians? Now, in my opinion, when I went to the state of California, when my wife took me to LA my first time, there was great parts of LA, very beautiful. Let me tell you something. California is expensive. California is very, very, very expensive. California is expensive. New York is expensive. DC is expensive. Okay, Texas is getting expensive because a lot of people, fled to Texas from California with millions of dollars because of their small homes worth more in Texas than they are in California. But I digress. Then again, what is this doing for the American people? That's what I asked. What has the Democrats done on a very large scale to assist, support the American people, other than letting in 11 million illegal immigrants? Which leads me to my next story. Because reports suggest a dramatic decline in the U.S. immigrant population by roughly 1 million people between January and May of this year. Now, the CIS and BLS data intricate drop about 957,000 foreign-born individuals, and the caveats include self-deportation, enforcement pressure, and potential survey non-participation. Meanwhile, broader migration estimates show continued net gains at 2.8 million net international migrants added between 2023 and 2024 under the Biden administration. The data here is very complex with large-scale declines in some categories, but overall growth and migration. And we'll cut through the noise and show what's really happening and what it means, because as we analyze this story here, again, the federal troops, as we analyze this story, it states, are immigrants afraid to answer accurately? Between the Trump administration's sprawling crackdown on illegal immigration and the onslaught of zero tolerance messaging, it's possible that some survey respondents are now too scared to tell the government whether they are members of their household or immigrants. So basically, immigrants in any capacity, illegal or legal, are not answering the surveys. They're just not participating. Again, they don't want any link that can give ICE evidence of their whereabouts. I understand that. If I was in their position, believe me, I understand. And it states here, they may be afraid to say they are a non-citizen, because even if they are in a legal capacity, does not mean that their residency or their visas can't be revoked. We've already seen it. So again, they simply are just not answering the surveys. They are not participating in this. And believe me, I understand this. It states that ICE has reported 246,000 removals so far this fiscal year, which began in October of 24 and ends September 30th, and includes more than 3 months of data under the Biden administration. But some other immigrants here legally or illegally have chosen to return voluntarily to their home countries. If the population survey is an accurate account, it would represent a mass exodus. This is a good thing. Now, when it comes to legal immigration, even though I understand in some regards, legal immigration still, mass legal immigration does hurt American citizens when it comes to depressed wages and opportunities in the job field, especially those American citizens who do not have higher education. So again, I totally understand, but when it comes to illegal immigration, it's a really good thing that people are now going home and going to represent their countries and work hard in their own countries and create opportunities in their own countries. Now, we must touch on DC, my hometown, because Washington, DC, supposedly the capital of the free world, but I'll give you guys the ugly truth. 700,000 Americans who live there. They have fewer rights than people in any other state. They pay federal taxes. They fight in our wars, and yet they have no vote in Congress. They have no senators, a single House delegate with no real power. They just holding a seat, getting paid for absolutely nothing, maybe pushing papers and sending emails. And when push comes to shove, even their local government can be overridden by yours truly, the president of these United States of America. As I was speaking earlier about Section 740, just this couple of days ago, our president, Section 740, which is the Home Rule Act, which is a 1973 law that grants Washington, D.C. residents only limited authority to govern themselves with one signature. He took direct control of the city's police department. No governor could have done this to them. But DC, do not forget, my home city, my home region, my home district is not a state. And that's the difference. The Home Rule Act is basically a leash, like a dog. It lets DC elect a mayor and a council, but Congress and the president can yank the leash at any time. Section 740 is a perfect example. It lets the president federalize the Metropolitan Police Department by bypassing the mayor entirely. She doesn't have any power, Mayor Bauer, especially when the president steps in. Now, imagine DC as the 51st state. That police force, it would be under a state constitution, not a federal statute. That's a clear distinction of the amount of authority that a governor and a state would have. And the president could request National Guard support, but couldn't simply seize control of local law enforcement without going through the governor. And a governor could say no. Now, same thing happened in California, no less. He kind of deployed troops there, and he didn't even care what the governor stated, and the Supreme Court backed his play. So again, does it really make a difference when we speak about authoritarianism? See, a governor could fight it in state courts as well as in federal courts. They could slow the process. They could demand negotiations. They can use the full power of the state sovereignty to protect their citizens. But a mayor, Mayor Bauer, they have no such shield. The law is written so the president can simply take over. You guys want to know the power of a mayor. Administer city services under Congress rules, again, under Congress, be overruled by the federal law instantly, appeal decisions, but without a constitutional power base, they have no power. But what could a governor do? See, a governor, he could command state-controlled police forces. He can refuse certain federal orders unless martial law, which that's basically what's being imposed, or specific statutes are invoked. He can use state courts to challenge federal overreach. He can mobilize their own National Guard unless, what President Trump has done, federalize them. Call on 2 U.S. senators and a full voting House delegation to apply political pressure. Again, a governor, and being a state, provides different layers of protections and different functions within the federal government he could actually exercise, or she could exercise. This isn't by any accident, folks, because in 1790, Congress carved D.C. out of Maryland and Virginia to serve as a federal capital. And the idea, a neutral seat of government, not beholden to any state. Now, for decades, residents had no local government at all. But in 1973, the Home Rule Act gave them a mayor and council, but it also gave Congress and the president a back door into every decision that is made in D.C. So D.C. became the ultimate paradox, the center of American democracy, quote unquote, republic, but a colony of Congress. And let me tell you this is why statehood changes everything. It will mean that they will at least have 2 senators, a voting representative, a constitution, and real sovereignty. It means no president could simply seize control of your police without facing legal and political firepower. It means that the budget can't be vetoed by Congress because they don't like your local laws. And it means that 700,000 people who live in the capital of the United States of America stop living under rules designed for the 1800s. That's what that means. Because right now, Washington, D.C. is the only place in America where the president can do this. Take over a local police force with a pen stroke. And it's only possible because D.C. is not a state. If we truly believe in equal representation, then the people who live here deserve more than a mayor. They deserve a governor, a legislator, and the power to say, Mr. President, you don't just get to take over our city. The capital of the free world should be free itself. So DC has no power. The mayor has no power. The city council has no power when Congress and the president steps in. Again, should DC be a 51st state? I believe it should. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. You know, when you tell people you're from D.C. and you have someone from D.C., they say, well, are you from D.C., or you from Maryland or Virginia? Because the whole DMV area, people tend to have the same culture. They tend to have the same lingo, some of the same slang. So again, people may say they're from D.C., but they're actually from Maryland or Virginia. No. Born in Southeast Community Hospital, graduated from Cardozo Senior High School. That is a true Washingtonian. And that is true DC. So again, should DC be a 51st state? Hell yes.